Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma. Let's go. Well, hello, beautiful people. How have you been? Oh my goodness. Are you guys enjoying the summer? At least on the side of the world, we are enjoying the beautiful warm weather. It's fabulous. And also, I'm trying to manage my moodiness because I tend to get this really weird case of summer sadness when the weather warms up. And I don't really know what that is about. I have theories. Anyway, today I'm hoping that this is going to be a short and sweet episode. So let's see how I go with that one, okay? What I want to do is talk a little bit and highlight something that I've been discussing quite a bit with my one-on-one clients. And I actually even recently posted about this on Instagram. And since I still get quite a few DMs from people asking more about it, I thought I'd turn it into an episode for you guys. So what I want to talk about today is the feminine and the masculine energies in a career change context. What they are, how they manifest themselves, and how to work with them, how to find balance so that your career change process is smooth and fruitful. Now, obviously, the actual subject area of masculine versus feminine energetic blueprint is not new. There's so much material about it, and I'm sure many of you who listen to this podcast are very, very familiar with the topic. And that is that despite of our gender, we all contain both energetic signatures. So we have the masculine, the yang, the sun, and then we have the feminine, the yin or the moon. And depending on our predisposition, background, sex, even certain traumatic experiences, one of these energies usually tends to be more expressed than the other. So for example, you may look at the woman who is a high-ranking role in the military, for instance. The reason why I'm using this example is because I did have a brief stint in the military myself as a civilian, so I'm somewhat familiar with the dynamic there. So you will have a high-ranking female officer, and you will often find these type of officers highlighting and overcompensating for the masculine. So they'll be strict, they'll be rigid, they'll be authoritative, very cerebral, not really emotional, at least not emotional in public. And you'll hear people refer to women like that as alpha, or they'll say things like, oh my God, she has balls, right? So basically what's happening, she's being attributed many of the usually masculine qualities. And obviously I am overgeneralizing here, as you have all kinds of women in these environments. However, military, corporate environments often do celebrate and reward assertiveness, competition, growth at all costs, urgency to act. They want overachievers, they want leaders, there's a lot of hierarchical structure and so on and so forth. So often, if a woman wants to do well in these environments, she will have to either consciously or unconsciously assume these qualities that are celebrated and rewarded financially in terms of promotions and so on and so forth. And that will be required in order for her to compete on I want to say even playing field, but it's not really even at all. But they will tend to overemphasize these masculine qualities. And while many of them may feel comfortable and even safe in these environments or roles, I did that when I was in finance. I was very much sort of, to the point, straightforward. I preferred working with men. Sort of these qualities were really expressed in me. But at the end of the day, this is an unbalanced dynamic, and it may start burning these women out and may make them feel irritable and impatient and unhappy. And they might not even know why they're feeling that. But because, by celebrating masculine, they often end up suppressing their feminine qualities. And these two aspects are designed to coexist and co-create within us, right? So again, I'm not talking about a sex, I'm talking about the energy within us. And to be honest, the opposite could be true as well. There are women who tend to suppress or not really integrate the masculine. So perhaps these could be women that, say, grew up around hypermasculine father figures or grew up around brothers. So these type of women tend to take up either after them and they become like toy boyish because they feel the need, all of us do, to fit in. Or the opposite could be true and they assume this hyper feminine role and essentially they become the princess of the family. So this elevated femininity and this sort of dynamic often carries forward into their adult lives. So these often, again, exaggerating just to make a point, these women often become very sexual, sensual, feminine women. They're very comfortable in their bodies. They may be consciously and unconsciously using their femininity or sexuality to manipulate the opposite sex and so on and so forth. And a lot of them actually may not have cultivated healthy masculine qualities because they're not used to being not used to doing. They're used to being on the receiving end. Things are done for them. They get their way. They're not used to putting in so much effort in achieving. They're more used to like attracting things and people coming to them, which is, by the way, beautiful to see. But again, often that means that their inner feminine and inner masculine are out of balance. So in these situations, the feminine is the dominant energy. So how is this related to career transitions? I hear you ask. Well, I'm glad you've asked because I do have some opinions on this, and that's why I'm recording the episode. What I personally notice as I work with career changers is a lot of them come from obviously many different industries, whether it's corporate business environments, law enforcement, finance, even medicine or big pharma, real estate, you name it. Many of them, when they decide that they need to switch, they feel at that point incredibly sick and deflated, having had to operate around these very heavy masculine energies for many years. And they're just depleted. They crave rest and nurture and rejuvenation, and they are so thirsty, like literally thirsty to connect with their inner feminine, to revive her back from the dead. And honestly, it's really that bad sometimes. It really is. And they're just so done with that strict, toxic, masculine environments. They just want to slam the door to that world and never, ever, ever come back. So when they start the career change process, whether, with me or on their own, they do tend to simply reject everything that resembles masculine aspects of building a career. So they will reject strategy, consistency, structure, self-discipline, and they will start ignoring and rebelling against everything that's masculine. And they will then go on focusing on just pursuing the feminine energy, which is nurture, compassion, creativity, idea generation. They don't want to work anymore. They want to attract. They want to manifest. They only want to follow their intuition. They only want to surrender, right? And these are all, by the way, amazing qualities, and we do need to know how to work with them. But the point being here is that they literally go to the extremes of exercising and essentially living only with that energy just because of how, again, depleted they felt before. And I will be the first one to validate that this deep yearning that they feel is valid. They do need space and they do need time to heal and recalibrate after being exposed to this forever demanding perfectionistic, toxic, masculine influence. And again, if I do know I have some male listeners. You guys, I'm not talking about men, okay? I feel like I need to like re-emphasize these things these days because everyone is so sensitive. So these women then, they tend to deem everything that's masculine as the enemy because it hurt us before. It brought us to that state of burnout. So this means that even if their career blueprint sometimes indicates for them that, say, owning a business would be a great fit for them, they do tend to close off to that idea because they imagine that in order to run a successful business, they'll have to like revert back to that toxic masculine hustle. All work, no play, focus, 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 get up at 2 a.m., get the work done, right? They're like, no, I'm not doing that. And this means a lot of the times that they completely missed out on a super elite opportunity to build a fulfilling career, right? Just because they haven't taken the time to heal their inner masculine. So what they do, they just throw the baby with the bathwater. And I've seen it quite a few times, even in my practice, where someone is extremely entrepreneurial, but just because they're so tired and so hurt by that world, they completely reject the idea, which again leaves them confused. And see, many of them have rarely been exposed to actually healed and sacred masculine qualities because they've mostly been experiencing the distorted, the imbalanced masculine, which our culture, let's be honest, is inundated with. Your assertiveness, discrimination, rigidity, intolerance, favoritism, power play, all of that is unhealed masculine. That both of us, both of the genders or many genders experience. And this wounded masculine also often manifests itself in this sort of derogatory, perfectionistic inner dialogue as well. So it's not just external pressure, it's also internal pressure, right? So their inclination, of course, is to push it away. For example, I had a client who had left business consulting, and you probably know consulting can be tough. It's long hours. You are either presenting to the client, engaging with the client, or working on client deliverables, oftentimes overnight. And then you also need to sell and upsell. And it's just lots of stress and lots of dysregulation for people who are in those industries. Again, for some of them, it's aligned, but not for many. So when her and I were going through the holistic career change process, we found that she's, again, extremely entrepreneurial, and she had a bunch of amazing, viable, unique business ideas. But because she was so burnt out by the toxic masculine culture in consulting, she basically completely rejected the idea of owning a business at all, even though it was like written in the stars for her. That's how aligned it was. It was like clear as day to me. But as we continued sort of working together, and she was allowing for more quality rest and introducing nervous system regulation and mindfulness practices, she even picked up dancing, actually, because I did suggest for her to start working more with her feminine. She started feeling more whole, more grounded. And from that space, when we revisited business ideas, she was so much more receptive, and she was even excited about the potentiality of starting and running a business on her terms, on her hours, her rules, right? That was very clear. We are not bringing in the old toxic masculine. We're bringing in the healed masculine, but we're still co-creating with the feminine. And in order to do that, she had to literally learn how to integrate that healthy aspect of masculinity, because that's where the true growth and healing happens. And here's why I even talk about this now in a separate episode, and why understanding and working with these dynamics is so important in career transitions. Here's what happens. When we switch careers, we're essentially starting to build a new structure or a new container for ourselves. It doesn't even matter whether you're building your own business, whether you are applying for a different industry, different job, different role. This is a new structure, right? So by avoiding embracing the strategic action or the masculine, This may result in us just walking around dreaming at the beginning stages when we're like, I need to switch career. So we'll be walking around dreaming, we'll be generating ideas, we're going to be pulled into many different directions, but we will be unable to ground into one of them. So we might be spending a lot of time getting excited about these ideas, but never quite completing the cycle or building some sort of foundation for any of these ideas to even test them out, right? Which will, again, might feel really great for some time because we're doing the opposite of what we used to. We're getting excited. We're generating these ideas. We're like, the world is our oyster. But after some time, you start noticing the pattern that it doesn't lead anywhere. And when we don't see those tangible results, what ends up happening is ends up like demotivating us and affecting our self-trust, which is so important when we're switching into a new career. We need to be able to trust ourselves and work with ourselves. So again, this means that we will mostly be living with the feminine, which is that fantastic, sexy, chaotic energy of creation and flow. But if we just primarily live in that state and only that state, we will be absolutely avoiding making decisions, commitments, taking some sort of directed intentional action. Or if we do take some action somehow because we'll get inspired one day, we'll probably drop out soon enough, we'll change our minds, and, may wander around like that for years, right? So as you can imagine, then their career change efforts won't be fruitful. They won't be grounded. It will be lacking results. It's going to be all up in the air, which is great if you're a writer or you're a creator. But if you're actually building something more substantial, we can't just live with that energy or in that energy. And as I'm describing this, you might even recognize either yourself, right? Or maybe some people in your life who exhibit these traits. So their goal then, or your goal if this is you, is to accept and start integrating and starting practicing masculine qualities. And I'll tell you in a bit what these qualities are and how to do that. So that is one side of the spectrum. If we are stuck or we're like submerged in the feminine because for some reason we decided to completely reject masculine because masculine hurt us, okay? Now the other side of the spectrum could be the opposite. As we start the career change, we may do the opposite. We may start bringing in that same heavily driven, rigid, toxic masculine into this magical exploratory change process. So just imagine an elephant in a crystal shop. Okay, that is what it feels like. And then we start operating from that wounded masculine. So we'll be then overthinking, getting perfectionistic, putting pressure on ourselves to perform, make right decisions. And because we don't know what the right decision is for the future, we'll be just getting stuck in indecision, analysis paralysis. We'll be getting frustrated, angry with ourselves, with the world, with the universe, with our neighbor, with our mom, right? Like we'll just getting stuck in that sadness or anger loop. So notice the difference between the energies, right? So the feminine is kind of light and airy-fairy and excited and she wants to play, but she never really sits down long enough to create an actual tangible plan. And then if we're stuck in the wounded masculine, a lot of the times that we just carry forward from quote unquote our previous life in those like really rigid environments, then we'll be just like only focusing on getting the results. But because we don't have the direction, we don't know where to go. So that just causes a lot of that inner tension, right? So again, this kind of the wounded masculine, it may result in these spurts of, effort or starting to do something new. But then again, after we do something, we start questioning ourselves and then we completely withdraw, we stall, and again, we self-doubt. Or there could be another manifestation of wounded masculine and how it represents itself is we actually come into the process or we decide that we want to change career and we go into these like heavy military boots and we start like marching and pushing and going through, completing things through willpower and staying up and forcing ourselves to, autopilot through action. So we take that old toxic culture and we apply to the new aligned career, right? Just to realize quick enough that doing that again will make us feel burnt out in a new venture that was supposed to be different. We were supposed to find something that is energizing and interesting to us. But because of the way we approach it, we completely squeeze out all of the fun and creative energy. Right? And that is, we then just operate mostly from, using that cognitive function. So we think and we act without taking any time to feel into our body, to consult intuition. And then the whole experience feels dry and uninspired and lots of to-do lists and lots of stress and lots of fears and like feeling that we're always behind and why can't we get ahead of the curve? Why am I always someone, like all of this narrative. Does that sound familiar? So which one are you? Where are you recognizing yourself, right? Obviously, I'm describing the two extremes, and many of us do live somewhere on the spectrum between the two, ideally in the middle, and I'll talk about that. However, again, when we're leaving those really misaligned places, we usually be more sort of prone to be on one side or the other. So if you're recognizing yourself here, like that is also a good exercise for you to maybe catch yourself during the day or in action when you find yourself engaging in these patterns. So where do you want to be when you transition into that new fulfilling career? I'll tell you where you don't want to be. You don't want to be operating from either or, black or white, masculine or feminine. That's for sure. Okay, that's where we don't want to be. Here's where you do want to be. We want to first know when to engage which energy. Okay? This is what it means. When you start the process of looking for aligned career, meaningful career, fulfilling career, you want to start first with honoring the feminine energy, honoring the flow, honoring the intuition, and really kind of sinking into that. Whether you're a male or female, doesn't matter, applicable for both. That is, we don't start the process with sitting down and outlining all of the detailed steps and creating a strategy for transition, which is what masculine is always inclined to do. It needs clarity, it needs structure, but that simply won't fly in this career change context if you're seeking to switch to a successful and purpose-led career. You don't start with a masculine. Masculine has no effing idea. It's the feminine that we're going to consult and engage with first. So you want to start by tuning in, checking in with your body, whatever somatic practices you have, use them. This is the time to use them. And notice whether your energy is expanding or contracting when exploring options. Notice how you feel. We want to stay open in this stage. We want to stay receptive. We want to be curious. We want to be playful when we start the exploration process. We don't want to rule out ideas ahead of time. I see that happening a lot as well, where people are like, I can't be like a carpenter. I'm like, says who? What if you're going to be like a special sacred carpenter? I don't know where that came from, but you know what I mean? Like we don't know yet. Like you don't want to rule any ideas because you think or you have some sort of judgment ahead of time that it might not be financially successful or people will look down on you. No. We stay completely open because we literally have no idea at that stage. So imagine this light, playful, childlike energy of just playing, trying, tasting, exploring. And we do that. That's the equivalent of basically what I do with my clients in the blueprint process. So we have many interesting, dreamy conversations. We analyze all that the person has considered before, everything that sparks joy in them. We sort of connect the dots, identify the threads, right? It's all sort of more of the pie in the sky ideas. And that is you working with your creative, intuitive feminine. We start by letting her lead the process, right? This is also the stage where you wanna, if your belief system allows you, you want to engage with the universe. You want to follow the signs. Like many clients of mine, they always report to me once we start walking on this path of alignment, they're like inundated with so many signs and angel numbers, and they see the same animal or a bird or a bee. You know what it is. Like you want to receive those omens. You want to work with them. There's a message for you there. This is what the feminine does. And only when something feels right and expansive and soul tickling, only then we bring in the masculine energy. Only then we start investing into building, outlining our strategy, structuring it, setting very strong boundaries around this idea. So the masculine is there to help us contain the feminine, not to take over the process and start to control it out of fear, because that's what the masculine does. Do you see that there's a difference? So this is where we bring in the aspects of healed masculine, the leadership, the responsibility, patience, and also self-compassion for yourself and others. Imagine like a father figure, a loving father. They will encourage you, but they will also kick your ass. That's a healed masculine, right? They'll be like, listen, you can do it. I believe in you. We can do this. You need to believe in yourself. So this masculine container, again, then becomes the safe container for our feminine creative power. And that's how beautifully they can start co-creating, coexisting in a union within us. Because both of them are needed. Both of them serve a purpose. Both of them are sacred. And both of them have then enough space to self-express without either of them taking over. They'll just have different stages than when they'll be leading the process. So in this sense, in a career change context, you start with the feminine and then you allow the masculine to come in and support the feminine. I wish someone told me that when I was changing careers. I just had a moment of self-pity, you guys. Because I obviously started with the masculine, because I was so, driven by these values. I wanted to have all the answers ahead of time before I even dipped my toe in the water, because I felt so unsafe and uncertain. That's why my career change was so long, right? So referring back to the example of my burnt out client, right? When we started with reconnecting with her sacred feminine, she started sharing more of her dreams, more of her visions that she previously completely had discarded. She even explored some of them, or the way I refer to it, like she even collected the data and went out and tried some of these business ideas. And only when she landed on an idea that felt like a full body yes for her, we started bringing in more of the masculine structure, action, strategy. We talked about how to set up the business, how to decide on the next steps, how to define the scope of her offerings, just the good old structure, right? So that structure became the container for her expansive idea. That became home for her idea. Are you guys with me in this one? I hope that makes sense. Listen, even though it may not seem like it right now because of everything that's going on in the world, but as a collective, we are stepping more and more into I call it the and world. And world, not either or world, but the and world of connection and unity. And the same is true of our inner world. A lot of us are going through that inner unification right now, especially when we set out to build those aligned, sustainable careers. We want to engage with both feminine and masculine elements that are meant to play together and dance together. And then when we do that, the result of it is a career that does not just take from you, like you've experienced when you were burnt out in the masculine energy, but it actually gives back so much and has the power to nurture you and heal you because of that healthy exchange. And the reason why I really wanted to record this podcast is because I see people often do the opposite, like I did. So many of us make that mistake. They want to know all the details. They want to know 100 million steps of the detailed plan ahead of time, before they've done any creative exploration. Like they don't usually even started the process. They're like, just tell me what it is. Tell me how we're going to do it. Like, make me feel safer. That's what they're asking. Make me feel safe. But safety is created within, and we all have an ability to cultivate that. We have to cultivate that, especially in this day and age, right? And when they bring in like that need to control and know everything ahead of time, when they want to know the how and how long, the consequences of bringing in the masculine too early are very serious. You know why? You know why it's so serious? Don't want to scare you, but it is serious. Because then when you bring in masculine too early, when you bring in that elephant in the crystal store, you know what will happen? You'll probably end up choosing a career path that makes sense to your head or to people around you because you're very cerebral and cognitive about it, versus a career that is truly aligned to you, mind, body, soul aligned. A career that simply makes sense because maybe it's an extension of something you've done before. And again, it's great. A make sense career is great as a transitional career, meaning I know where I'm going, but my end goal is creating a holistic retreat. But in the meantime, while I'm getting there, my transitional position will be get into the management of a retreat center. So it's not my end goal, but I'm getting closer. So it's okay to do that. That makes sense. But what I'm talking about is that ultimate aligned career. If you choose and think, oh, I should just do this because that makes sense, or that's the feedback that I get from people, you know what will happen? It could work for some time, but chances are it won't be sustainable, long-lasting, meaningful career. The chances of that being that is just so slim. So again, while these concepts may seem a little elusive or like wooey, well, at this point, you probably know that I love some woo. However, they have some serious impact, which may end up steering you away from that career, the dream career that you'll be in love with. And that will leave you more confused, more deflated than ever. And this then probably will result in you just going back to your old career or your old employer, maybe deciding that you're just not someone who's meant to have an inspiring career. Or maybe you just don't have a purpose. Honestly, I lovingly call bullshit on that. Sorry, not sorry. I just do. That's not true. You absolutely do have an aligned and meaningful and financially abundant career waiting for you. Maybe even several career paths that are aligned. Sometimes it's not just one. So the question that I'd love for you to be asking is not whether you have that career, but how do I find it? Switch it up, because you do have it. And as I've been saying on this podcast over and over and over again, like a broken record, many of us simply were never properly taught how to look for that type of career, how to locate it, and how to transition into it. We're left in the dark. Okay? And if you're listening to this episode in real time, and if you've been resonating with these concepts, but still, for some reason, haven't managed to find that career that I talk about or that business idea, I really want to tell you about the new group coaching experience that I'm inviting people into, people like yourself. So it's a 5-month, a very unique holistic career change group coaching container. So what it means is that you basically come in, you go with us through all of the stages of career change. We go through the analysis, the blueprint, idea generation, designing that career, testing options, and preparing a very detailed, tailor-made transition plan for you. Right? So again, notice what we are doing. We're bringing in the masculine only at the end of the process. We only talk about the how and how long at the end of the process. So in a nutshell, you simply come in and you don't have to worry about anything anymore. You're taken care of. We take you through the holistic process. You get coached weekly and you leave this program having complete clarity on what you're doing next and actually even having started the transition in 5 months. And sharing on top of this container is that not only you have access to the coaching, the portal with weekly training and teachings, but you also get to enjoy being part of the small community of like-minded women who are also going through the same process with you. So lots of tears, lots of laughter, camaraderie, support, brainstorming together, problem solving, feedback, and just holding a lot of space for each other. Because the number one feedback that I keep on getting when I work with people one-on-one is that they miss the community. So this is the container where we finally bring in that community. And in 5 months from now, you could be starting a completely new, authentic chapter of your life. So we are enrolling this week only. So until June 11th, again, if you're listening real time, I really invite you to consider this container. I believe in this work so much that I don't even feel bad essentially selling this to you. I'm actually very excited and very proud, and I am only imagining what massive transformation a lot of you could create if you decided to invest in yourself, invest some time, invest some effort to get that support in order to find your answers and be very intentional with what you'll be creating, again, by the end of the year. So if you're someone who's seeking for that clarity on what a meaningful, fulfilling career is for you, but maybe you haven't managed to identify it on your own, or maybe you are someone who has an inkling of what you'd like to do, but just really want to make sure that whatever you're considering is the thing for you, is aligned for you. And if you want a simple process on how to transition by avoiding pay cuts, avoiding unnecessary disruption to your lifestyle, right? And if you want to gain confidence and feel confident as you enter this new career, because hello, we'll be dealing with imposter syndrome, right? If you want the strategy, how to become successful as you transition into a new career, I really invite you to check out this container. There is a link in the show notes. And again, this is a holistic approach. As you probably already know, I talk about it a lot on this podcast, is one of a kind, and it has supported so many women transitioning into amazing designed for you careers that feel like coming home for them. There were women who transitioned from civil engineering to being a treehouse architect, from big pharma to social responsibility in travel and hospitality. We had social worker transition into interior design photography. We had someone who went from marketing to real estate and setting up an amazing animal rescue farm and B&B and basically owning that business. We had someone who transitioned from banking to trauma-informed nutrition, social media management to fashion styling and influencing. We had someone build a portfolio career of part-time business development and part-time dog training. We had someone transitioning from project management to somatic coaching. And obviously, you already heard the amazing ladies who were on the podcast. We had Nicole, who's transitioning from tech industry to water healing. Michelle from wine industry to family and marriage therapy. We have Nikita, of course, who's transitioning from dentistry to design, interior design, and also she's still in the process of crafting her vision, which is even bigger and is such an exciting process. And these are just a few examples of people who found their new soulmate careers, because I like to refer to these aligned careers as soulmate careers. And as you can probably tell from just a few examples that I gave you, that none of these examples are these cookie cutter, one size fits all, boring career, because all of these women ended up designing super specific, soul aligned, mouth-watering, exciting careers, some of which, by the way, didn't even know existed before they started the process. And all of these careers work for them and with them, right? And this is all a result of following that blueprint process and reacquainting with their authentic career identities. And this is exactly what we'll be creating in this group coaching container. So again, if you're listening real time, head over to the show notes, find the link to all the details about the program and all the details how to enroll. We start on summer solstice, June 21st. So we don't have that much time left. And I'd really would love to welcome you guys. It's going to be epic. Can't wait to meet you. Speak to you soon. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you resonate with this content, please subscribe and leave a little review to put a smile on my face. And if you'd like to take this work further and have my one-on-one support in switching to an aligned career path using my holistic career change method, make sure you head over to the show notes and book your free consultation call. I can't wait to meet you. Have a nice day.